All right, welcome in. Hail Varsity Postgame here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in La Vista. I'm Austin Jacobsen. That is Ravi Lulla. And we are having a swell time because who would have thought Nebraska found a way to win a Big Ten football game, winning at home over Northwestern. 2021, feeling pretty good. They get the defensive stop at the end. And I think we would like to say to all Big Ten officials to start Hail Varsity Postgame, have a safe flight home and good luck getting out of Lincoln, because that is going to be a tough task for the guys in stripes today. That was a very tough day in the office for every one of those officials wearing black and white.
Yeah, have a safe flight home wasn't exactly the sentiment I had in mind.
I think we got to keep it positive. Keep it positive. Have a safe trip.
I am positive that those refs are deep fried ass. I am positive about that.
I tried. I wanted to keep it positive. I tried my best.
I am 100% positive about that. That was... I wasn't even going to start there though, because Nebraska won.
They won.
They're 6-2.
They are.
They are bowl
eligible.
Like that is. Listen, positives.
This is the earliest Nebraska's been bowl eligible in 10 years.
2016.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. Because last year bowl eligibility came in the second to last game of November. This one comes while we are still in the month of October.
And they hadn't been bowl eligible since 2016.
I haven't been able to go trick-or-treating with Nebraska bowl eligible in a long time. It's been a long time.
Yeah, no, I like being bowl eligible before November. That's a good thing. It leaves a lot of other opportunities on the table for you there in terms of what the season has in store. It's a good win. Nebraska and Northwestern always play these ugly, just gross football games.
Yep.
I don't think I'm being too strong here. I hate Northwestern.
Yeah,
They suck.
They
don't suck, but like the way they play sucks.
There's a part of it that Nebraska, and obviously we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of this entire game, but there's portions of this game that are so odd because Nebraska had control of the game. Northwestern never felt like they were really in control, but yet Nebraska still played into Northwestern's hand throughout. It kind of felt like I actually had the luxury of being in the stadium for the first half and then back here in La Vista for the second half. What just a weird dynamic in that first half. It was very sleepy to start, and Northwestern at 11 a.m. is probably the most dangerous Northwestern you could possibly have because they seem to come out, maybe not fired up, but they know that they can lull you to sleep, get you ready for it. And there was a couple lull you to sleep moments in this game itself. It felt like Northwestern, everyone bottlenecks in and they break away a huge touchdown run on the outside late in the game. They're, asleep themselves and then give up a kickoff return touchdown to start the second half. Very odd game, but nonetheless, it's a game that Nebraska won. And the first thought that I've had from being in the stadium, watching the game, watching it on television, getting all the, different angles and everything, the main complaint we had 8 days ago after Nebraska laid the biggest of eggs in Minneapolis was that there was actual fight today. Yeah. And there was energy. And I understand people are going to have the concerns over the personal fouls and the late plays and the chippiness and everything else going on. And even you could sense it in the stands and even hear it, that a lot of people were complaining about, why are you, antagonizing them? Why are you picking up these extra plays? I'm not saying I want a 15-yard penalty after every single, kickoff or, turnover on downs or whatever the case is. But at least it was there. The team was fighting for every single inch, it felt like today, more than they were 8 days ago.
Also, I'm going to be honest. Everything that Nebraska did, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't keep your composure better than that, everything Nebraska did, Northwestern had coming to them.
Yes.
That was an incredibly cheap, chippy, and I'm going to go ahead and say dirty football team. They were doing stuff constantly. I mean, there's a perfect example on the Facebook, the face mask, not Facebook, face mask on Sierra Wright, where then there's a cheap personal foul out of bounds that doesn't get called. The reason that McCullough gets called for the personal foul is because he was literally blocked into the stadium, which should have been a personal foul before that. Like, we're not even having this discussion if Northwestern is just not a dirty football team. Like, I don't know how else to put it. That's the truth. Now, there's other things that are not involved there, but we're talking about like chippiness and penalties and whatever. Like, the thing that was most frustrating to me about these officials wasn't, listen, the bogus fourth down conversion call, was maybe one of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life, especially that was reviewed.
It was weird because of where they initially marked it to
was correct.
And then where they ended up giving him the spot. No matter what they did, even after the review, it was wrong at every single step.
Yes.
Like there was no version of what they did that was correct. Even that you could say, okay, I see where they got that. They didn't get it correct in any sense or in any form.
So like that was horrifying. But my biggest gripe is that they just allowed Northwestern to play a certain way. And then when Nebraska matched the energy, it was a penalty.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're like they had no control over that football game whatsoever. They're lucky there wasn't a fight. They're lucky more people didn't get injured. Like this was a horribly officiated football game. And it's not, I mean, even to the last play, which went in Nebraska's favor, like Andrew Marshall probably held him there.
Yeah.
Like, this was a horribly officiated football game. They should be embarrassed. The Big Ten should be embarrassed that this tape exists.
Yeah.
Because other people might see it.
Yeah.
Like this is a horrible, horrible example of Big Ten officiating. So like that all being said, and listen, it very nearly cost Nebraska the football game. I was happy to see that Nebraska fought back, not just sort of physically against Northwestern, but against the adversity of Northwestern being gifted a bogus 4th down conversion that led directly to a touchdown and some of these other things that I was really happy to see Nebraska fight back, because there were moments where it felt like there might not be any fight left.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was an accumulation of frustration there that I had personally. It seemed like the team was having as well. Then you get the Dylan Raiola interception right after all that, and you go, oh, this might be the breaking point of the fight of this team. And it wasn't. It wasn't. Nebraska gets an interception back of their own. They go down a terrific drive to go down, score, take the lead, and then stop Northwestern to seal the game. Like there was, I was really impressed with the fight of this team, because it would have been really easy when you're up 21-6, and then it feels like the referees kind of hand over at least half of that lead back to Northwestern to say, okay, well, I guess that's just one of these days. What are we supposed to do when every time we breathe on someone or touch someone or whatever, it's a penalty, and every time they trip us or hip drop tackle us 5 yards out of bounds or block our guys 10 yards out of bounds, then it's just cool. It's really easy in that situation just to say, like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here. Right. And Nebraska kept fighting. They kept fighting back on the field, and they were able to come out with the win. I'm really impressed by that. Obviously, ugly football game. Yeah. Just ugly football game. Shout out to Emmett Johnson. This is what everybody wanted. 27 carries, 124 yards. That was probably needed to be the game plan against Northwestern. I do think, and we can have this conversation later, I do think at some point you're going to have to find some medium ground between what we saw from Dylan today and what we saw from him in previous weeks, where he was throwing it 40 times, 22 times for 141 yards. Probably isn't the best way to maximize him, but we did see him on that winning drive make the throws he needed to make to win the ball game. That's why you have him.
And after he made a mistake.
Absolutely. Yeah, which we've, for the most part, seen from him this year.
Yeah.
Like, he's done a good job. No, it's a bad interception. He just didn't see the linebacker, threw it right to him.
Yeah.
Right? It's a bad interception. That can also be true. But for the most part this year, when he's thrown an interception, he's done a good job of bouncing back.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get too far away, because I don't want you to, Mountain St. Ravi erupt again, but can we just bring up two words that are chiming in the chat right now?
Oh, no.
Abrupt movement.
That's not a real thing. That's not a real thing.
Also, if you want to do abrupt movement, I was there at the stadium, like I said, in the first half. Northwestern was line shifting the entire first half. They were moving every single time pre-snap, but yet RVP is twice the size of any of their D tackles, and he's the one who gets caught. I don't understand.
You're allowed to shift. He didn't lurch forward. He shifted to his right. Oh, abrupt. Offensive line got scared. That's a penalty on the defense. Like, what are we doing here?
All right, so
I have no idea what these refs were looking at any point, and to just literally make something up. That's not a call.
No, and so the other, from what I could tell, is that RVP had shifted over from what would be right guard, so from his left to his right, the offensive line's right to left.
Gaps.
Yes, and he moved to the nose tackle spot ahead up on the center.
Yes.
Now, what an abrupt movement penalty is called, new to football, in case you're curious, it's considered a delay of game for the defense because it's a penalized movement of the defensive player for a sudden, quick, or exaggerated movement that would simulate the snap, meaning that he would I mean, if you're simulating the snap, that means he's either lurching forward or making contact, correct?
Yeah.
So if you are doing abrupt movement, what RVP did was not abrupt movement because he's realigning himself and trying to basically assert confusion on the offensive line pre-snap. He does nothing to engage. He does nothing to move forward. And the offensive lineman reacts to his movement, so that's what causes the abrupt movement. But Nebraska doesn't get abrupt movement calls on their side because the offensive linemen don't react. So here's the solution then, right, Big Ten? Because I want to work with you. Nebraska then, every single time a defensive line moves in front of you, everyone should move, right?
Yeah.
The entire offensive line should jump. Abrupt movement, we get free 5 yards. And then no line shifts ever again. Is that not the solution?
Yeah,
because that's what they handed to you today.
Yeah, I don't understand because we see this all the time. You know what's more abrupt movement than what we saw is when Nebraska, which they do this all the time, brings linebackers or second-level guys up, showing blitz, and then bail out of it. That happens constantly. That's not I don't know what that even means. That's such nonsense that I don't even, these referees were so bad. They didn't know what was going on. It took them several attempts, different times, to just get the game going again after some nonsense penalty that they called. It was an embarrassment for the Big Ten. Now, I'm glad Nebraska won, and it doesn't end up having to be this whole thing about they kind of handed Northwestern the tying touchdown and this whole thing. I'm glad it doesn't turn into that, but this is one of the poorest officiated games I've seen because not only were there bad calls, there was also no control over the game, which is literally your only job as a referee.
Yeah, right.
Your primary job as a referee is to have control of the game for player safety's sake. That was not accomplished. They also didn't get the rules right either. So that's a pretty big 2 strikes.
That is tough.
That's a tough look.
And here's the other part too. And I know it's kind of the quiet part that you don't want to say out loud, but if an officiating crew is having a bad day and they're either calling everything super ticky-tacky in one way or they're not calling anything, you have to remain consistent in that, right? Either be consistently bad so we know that it's going to always be bad, or be consistently, on top of everything. So that way it's okay, well, we're not getting away with anything. So don't even, try to bleed over the lines at any point. This felt like it was back and forth on each side, right? It felt like there were different times where, okay, abrupt movement gets called, so we're being super strict and super specific over here, but then a guy gets literally pushed into the fence line next to the tunnel walk and into the flag twirlers for the halftime performance, and, oh, yeah, we're just going to have offsetting delayed penalties. Okay, sure, I understand. But then on a kickoff return, a guy can body slam someone for Nebraska, right? Probably, Mekhi Nelson, probably a reasonable penalty, but then late hit out of bounds or late hits after contact or any of that sort of stuff. No, nothing. We just can't see it consistently. I think that's another frustrating aspect of it, is that you look at it every single which way through the 4 quarters of play, and you could argue that every single quarter was officiated differently, which you can't have in a Big Ten football game.
Well, I would disagree. I think every quarter was officiated poorly. So there was some level of consistency there. But I get your point in terms of you had no way to predict what was going to be called next. I mean, you have everything from Ja'Cory Barney gets called for the forward progress stopped, and then he gets thrown to the ground. Somehow that's not a penalty, but there was no consistency whatsoever. It didn't make any sense, and it's super frustrating. It was a super frustrating version of this game, and it makes me mad that it takes away from a Nebraska win.
Right. Yep.
A Nebraska win, bowl eligibility, 6-2. These are all the things that we wanted out of this game, a response from Nebraska. And listen, maybe it looked like you wanted it to, maybe it didn't, but that was an ugly football game. That was the type of game That was the type of game Northwestern was going to drag you into.
And it was also the type of game that Nebraska, not to keep rehashing kind of the same old narratives, but this is a game that Nebraska has lost before, right? Yeah. I mean, the games where the refs are against you and everything's not going your way, you lose an offensive lineman to injury. You're already out of right tackle before the game even starts. You have your backup right tackle into the contest to start the game. Yeah. You lose another one of them. You've got a makeshift offensive line. You're still figuring out. You throw a late game turnover, and yet you still win the game. Not to mention, and I know Northwestern's not necessarily the purple people eaters, but
and Rocco Spindler was playing with a club on his hand.
But one sack allowed. And I know, obviously, we want to get that to 0. We want to get that to 0.
And there were fewer dropbacks, so that's part of it, right?
I mean, 1 is less than 9, correct? And in a week's time, that's a pretty good improvement.
And honestly, and again, I was told all week, and it's true, Northwestern's defense was better than Minnesota's.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
They were top 20 in the country in total defense. This is a better defense than Minnesota's. So to hold them that way, to get basically, this is what we wanted to see from the Minnesota game plan.
Yep.
We wanted to see Emmett Johnson run the ball against the Minnesota defense that had been porous. We wanted to see Nebraska not give up 9 sacks to a team that only had 14 all year. Like, this is the game plan we wanted to see against Minnesota, and I thought it was the correct game plan.
Yep.
Like, it was the way to go. Again, there are going to be games where you're going to need more out of Dylan Raiola to win the game. That's a fact.
Yep.
Next week might be one of them,
Yep.
right? But you have to be able to win games this way too. Emmett Johnson is one of your best players. You have to get him the ball, and you have to use him to try and win games. There's no way around that. He's one of your best players. Now, I will say, I thought it was a challenge to get Dylan into a rhythm because of that, right? Like, you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons. Like, there's getting Emmett into a rhythm, and they did a good job of that. And then there's getting Dylan into a rhythm, and I thought that was harder. Right?
Well, and I'll say from the very first drive that Nebraska went down and scored a touchdown, led 7-3 at that point early in the contest. That was definitely a pace-making drive set by Emmett Johnson, and you could tell. I mean, he got the ball like 5, 6, 7 times in that one drive, and I think Dylan only threw it twice on that first scoring drive too. Yeah. But they were completions, and Emmett was clearly in control, and you could tell that Emmett had a run. And for the first time in a couple of games, it did feel like maybe it was either Dana Holgorsen, maybe it was Matt Rule in his ear, or whatever the case was. But it was just like there was that scene from Friday Night Lights when they're in the state championship and the coach just keeps doing this, just keep rolling, just keep running. And Emmett just kept rolling and kept running. And I mean, 27 carries for Emmett Johnson. That is full lunch pail day, and that's exactly the type of workload that he needed today. And he kept it rolling, kept it moving. It was good to see, like you said, Emmett get into that rotation and not only stay on that, but just keep on humming along. 4.7 yards per carry is not necessarily what you super
not a huge number,
but again, 27 carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns, and his longest run was 15 yards. Yeah, he didn't have the breakaway runs, but he had some alleys and gaps that either he followed and found, or he had to make himself.
He created himself. Yeah.
I mean, that touchdown run where he bounced it out and found some extra speed. I don't know. EJ had wheels like that. I mean, he beat a corner to the side. That was good.
Yuri brings up an interesting point. He says, much I hate the SEC, I respect them suspending refs for the season. So my question is, when is the big schools going to insist on refs being held accountable? I mean, there does have to be some level of accountability here.
Well, it depends on how the Big Ten sees how important this game is.
Well, I mean,
that's another part of it.
It shouldn't, though. I mean, if you're this bad and you're working for the Big Ten, like, you should be held accountable. If any of the rest of us are this bad at our job, we get held accountable.
Right.
Like, that's a real thing. Like, I understand there's not enough refs to go around, but you have to hold people accountable when they're bad at their job. That's how it goes. I think that happened last week with Nebraska when Coach Rule said he thought they were all bad at their jobs. I think he held them accountable for it. And we saw a different team this week. Now, again, it was an ugly win. It was a game that you're not going to probably rewatch a ton of times and be like, oh, that's beautiful football. But it is a game that you go, hey, Nebraska played the game in a way in which they knew they could execute and win.
Yep.
And executing is the key here. Now, there are a lot of things there on the defensive side of things that I've got some struggles with. I'll start with the run fitting. The run fitting is still really bad. Like, the run fitting is a huge problem. There has to be somebody on that roster on the second and third levels that will fit the run. There has to be somebody on that roster on the first level, that defensive line, that will stay on their gap in their assignment.
That's where I thought it started. I thought the defensive line had a really poor day today.
Totally fine. Like, I'm not going to fight you on that. Michael Rose-Ivy tweeted out during the game, you have to keep gap integrity if you're a defensive lineman. Nebraska didn't do a very good job of that. That's a huge place where it starts. Second and third levels have been struggling to fit on time and in the right spots all year long. You have to, and I think you saw with the defensive line rotations, they went to some guys that they hadn't gone to in a while.
Yeah.
We saw Jalen George back in the game. We saw Sua Lafotu back in the game. I think they were searching for something on the defensive line to get that better. I think you need to dig a little deeper in the second and third level playbook as well, on the depth chart as well, to find some guys that are going to fit the run a little bit better there, because it's been bad. That 56-yard run never should have happened. Looked like it was bottled up again. Same thing that we saw, like that almost every single one of these long touchdown runs look like they're bottled up at about 2.5 seconds into the play. And then boom, gone out the backside. That's not on the defensive line. It's not. When you look bottled up there, that's on the guys in the second and third level that have to clean it up. When you've got them bottled up initially, that's the defensive line job. And that's not to say that the rest of the game, the defensive line didn't struggle.
Right.
But those long runs are mostly on the second and third level. That should be a 6 or 7 yard run, not a 60 or 70 yard run. That's the first spot. The second thing is, I know first, I mean, the broadcast, like, Andrew Marshall's not their best cover man. I don't know. He said that like 8 times. Andrew Marshall is not their best cover man.
Yeah.
He's not. It's Sierra Wright. He is their best cover man. I don't know how many times you have to be wrong in order to be like, oh, maybe I should rethink this. Sierra Wright is their best cover man. It's not even close. Like, it is. I don't even understand what we're like. I don't even understand what you're talking about. Like, that's not a thing. The only reason Sierra Wright's playing where he is because Hartzog's injured and no one else can play that spot.
Yeah.
That's it. It has nothing to do with Andrew Marshall being a better cover corner because he's not. Like, I don't know like why you can be wrong so many times and think you're just nailing it because he clearly did. He said that thing with his full chest every time. Oh, they best on best. Andrew Marshall out. Like, listen, Andrew Marshall's a pretty solid corner. He was way better when he was playing the second corner because Sierra was able to play the one.
Yeah. Do you think at the very end of the game when they went, I wonder why they went after their number one corner for the game time potential touchdown? Oh,
for like the 8th time that day.
I wonder if they're avoiding someone else on the field.
Like, what are
interesting?
Like common sense here, bro. Like, what are we doing? Like, I just and listen, I do think it's a much, much bigger deal. I do think it's a much bigger deal that Malcolm Hartzog's out than we've been giving it credit.
I think we can officially see it now that it's
a huge problem.
It's more finalized now, and we've been waiting for him to come back, and it's not going to happen. But now we can see it definitely.
Like Malcolm Hartzog playing that nickel, letting Sierra be your clear number 1, and then having Andrew Marshall being your clear number 2, and then using Donovan Jones as your third corner instead of as your second starting corner is. Like, that is a much different secondary than the one we've been seeing for the past few games. That's why it looks different than it has the first couple games of the season where Malcolm Hartzog was healthy. This is a very much different secondary now, and it's more vulnerable. Andrew Marshall against 1s isn't as good as Andrew Marshall against 2s. Donovan Jones against 2s isn't as good as Donovan Jones against 3s. And we have seen both of those guys in the last 2 weeks get targeted. You know who still doesn't really get picked on? Sierra Wright. Maybe that's your best cover corner. Maybe. I don't know. Just the guy that no one ever wants to throw the ball at. Maybe. I don't know. That's just a thought.
Okay, so we talked at the very beginning of this before we got into refs and everything else, and we'll turn this show into the Hail Varsity positive postgame show. We've dosed it in there a little bit, but I think one of the main things that crossed my mind when you were kind of describing all that too is you said Marshall was best on best against Northwestern's receivers, right? That was what the broadcast team had been saying. One thing that I don't think crossed my mind leading up to this week, because there was still the lingering frustration from Minnesota, didn't know how Nebraska was going to perform in this moment. I think there was a part of this now kind of realizing as it settles in. I think maybe you and I and general Nebraska fans, it's probably a Northwestern thought, but Nebraska was more talented than Northwestern.
Yeah.
And they were better than a 7-point win, but Northwestern played them to a 7-point game. And I think Nebraska, I think you could make a pretty solid argument that Nebraska played to the level of Northwestern today in certain moments. Obviously, they had their mistakes and such, and kind of some slower drives, especially offensively there in the middle half. But regardless, Nebraska got the win, and they might have out Northwestern in this game. It's not a way that you want to win 12 games in the year, but it is a way to win one game on a Saturday in October.
Yeah, so I think there's that's kind of just what Northwestern games look like.
Right.
I mean, you have to be, in order to get Northwestern out of how they play, you have to be so much better than they are. And while I do think you're right that Nebraska is more talented than Northwestern, I don't think they're so much more talented than Northwestern that they can get them out of what they do. Right? They were close a couple times. Nebraska, if they had been able to get a bigger lead early, where they have that opportunity where they have the missed field goal. If they'd been able to get a touchdown there and get 14-6 early and get Northwestern in an uncomfortable position, that changes the kind of context of the game a little bit. I thought when Nebraska went up 21-6, that could have been that moment to give Northwestern credit. They did a really good job of sticking to what they do. And allowing the referees to help them out a little bit and get an assist along the way. But they stuck mostly to what they do and didn't panic because there was still quite a bit of time left. That's a big factor. Nebraska's not that much more talented than Northwestern at this point, that it's easy for them to get Northwestern in a spot where they can't continue to do what they want to do. I will say, if you want to beat Northwestern, getting Preston Stone to throw it 29 times, pretty good start.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
2 interceptions, only 159 yards, did not throw a touchdown pass.
And he had what ended up being 4 carries. I'll have to check the numbers on the dropbacks, but they basically ended up in a straight 50-50 run pass split, which is not what Northwestern wants to do at all. Like,
I know he had 3 definitive runs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that would, I mean, it's going to be close. It's going to be within a couple plays, one way or the other, that this was basically a 50-50 split for Northwestern in terms of their play calling. So, like, if you're Nebraska, that to me is a win because you were able to get them in a position where they basically had to drop back Preston Stone 30 times. That's not what they want to do. Mm-hmm. That's a huge win for Nebraska in terms of the way the game played out. But yeah, when you play Northwestern and you're Nebraska, you're going to have to probably win one of these grimy, gross games. It's what they weren't able to do against Minnesota. Make no mistake, the game plans against Minnesota and Northwestern, for Minnesota and Northwestern against Nebraska, were basically the same thing. Mm-hmm. Limit possessions, run the ball as much as possible, try and keep this thing out of Nebraska's offense's hands, and make this game as short as possible. Nebraska did a much better job against Northwestern than they did against Minnesota, obviously, and they were able to flip that a little bit, even though it was still a super grimy, ugly game. Mm-hmm. Just from a play call standpoint, you love it when Preston Stone's trying to throw the ball 30 times. Like, that's a win.
No,
that's
you're
an
absolutely right.
Win.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely. And there were so many times, too, Nebraska defensively, for a lot of the naysaying that we have done, especially on my end, I will say I didn't think the defensive line played well through 60 full minutes. I thought they had some moments here and there, but nonetheless, I thought Nebraska really got ahead of schedule in that first half, especially on the defensive side. It felt like Northwestern wasn't getting to 2nd and 6, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3 very often. In the second half, it did happen a little bit more, but Northwestern really had to work for every single yardage that they got, and they would hit just these random big pop plays, whether it was kind of the blown run on the outside. There were a couple of big pass plays that got away from them too, but the yardage in this game is going to look askew because Kenneth Williams had a kickoff return for a touchdown that took Nebraska's first possession of the second half off the board. Don't look at the yards. Don't look at the yards because Nebraska still had more time of possession. They still had more plays. They will have lower yards per play, yards per carry, all that stuff than Northwestern. But I don't want to do the Michigan argument on this, but if you take away just that one bounce-off touchdown run, if everyone does their job and fills their gap responsibly against that Northwestern long run that gave them a touchdown, 56 yards of rushing and of total offense goes off the board and 7 points. Nebraska then gets the ball back at midfield? Mm-hmm. We're talking about a completely different type of narrative in this contest if Nebraska gets the stop there. But again, Nebraska didn't accomplish their goals, didn't set their jobs correctly in that one possession, and it made a big difference. And it almost cost Nebraska the game, and it didn't. They came back, they overcame, and they are able to get the win again, 28-21. I was trying to look back at Nebraska's drive chart in the fourth quarter. They almost did to Northwestern what Minnesota did to Nebraska on Emma Johnson's last touchdown run. They got the ball with 9 minutes and 11 seconds on their own 36-yard line and went down the field to score and gave the ball back to Northwestern with 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go.
Yeah.
I mean, we're almost a 7-minute drive.
Incredible job.
That's hella impressive. I mean, that's so good to be able to go do that. And again, you look at what happened to them from a week before. They went back and handled their business on this one. There's a lot of narratives that are going to be rewritten again and again, a lot of the same complaints. And I mean, we're 7 games into this thing, right? Like, people are going to know what Nebraska's weaknesses are, but it's how you can either find the new pieces, go, like you said, 2 and 3 down the depth chart, see what can fill, what can be difference makers. But I think Nebraska has also proven that they can win in weird and wild ways, and they can also win doing it their way. And they've done it now twice in the fourth quarter against Maryland and against Northwestern.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, for whatever other issues there are, right? Whether it's, the defensive line, whether it's the run fits, whatever the issues are, Nebraska found a way to win a game that probably didn't go the way they wanted it.
Yeah.
Like, stylistically, that's probably not how Nebraska wants to play football more often than not. Being able to win those games is important. Being able to win games where not everything goes your way is important. As frustrating as it is as a fan to sit here and watch referees just make a mess of themselves all over the football field. Like if they were dogs, you'd smack them on the nose with a newspaper and say, naughty dog, don't pee in the house. Like that is what, like that was the equivalent of the Big Ten officiating today. And so like as much as that is frustrating as a fan, you have to sit there and go, okay, Nebraska found a way to win a game that didn't go their way, that they were playing like 11 on 18 or however many refs there are on the field at any, it's 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's 7.
Yeah. So, you're playing 18 on 11 for a lot of the game, which I'm not going to lie to you, is tough. If you're Nebraska volleyball, you can play with the other team having too many people on the floor and it doesn't matter.
People aren't talking. It's a Northwestern sweep this weekend. People aren't saying enough.
And
maybe again, the rifle team will get one.
And much like in the football game, Northwestern tried to cheat in volleyball too, and it didn't matter. So, I like, long story short, I hate Northwestern. I think they're the worst. Lovely campus. Evanston's a lovely place. I basically hate their athletic programs. Okay. I thought this was a super like cheap, chippy football team. Like I'm not, in all honesty, I was pretty frustrated with how Northwestern was allowed to play.
Do you mean this in like a toughness way, like a bite your kneecap, like Dan Campbell type of attitude,
or
like
in a cheap way? Like I think they were a cheap, dirty football team. Okay. Like I genuinely do. They were doing a lot of extracurriculars that they were getting away with and allowed to get away with. And anytime Nebraska said, "Hey, like we're not going to let this happen anymore," Nebraska got the flag. I thought that was super frustrating. I think this is when you're a team that is perpetually outmanned, which that's what Northwestern is as a program historically, you kind of have to find ways to try and figure out how to even the playing field a little bit. And it appears Northwestern has tried to do that by being a little bit dirty.
Right.
And if you can get away with it, sure, it works sometimes, but it also sucks when you have to play it the other way. So that not being, irregardless of the results here, I'm pleased that Nebraska was able to overcome that because I'll be honest, emotionally, having to deal with a team that's playing borderline dirty, if you want to argue with me on that at all, having to play against that type of team is one of the things that can take you out of your mindset faster than anything.
Yeah.
Like when you're just kind of sitting there like, hey, we're just going to keep letting this happen. That's one of the things that can get you out of your mindset so quickly. And I do have to give Nebraska a ton of credit for whatever else went wrong today. I have to give them a ton of credit for being able to overcome that.
So during halftime, at the very end, when the Huskers radio network gets their interview with Matt Rule, Jessica Cootie had asked what's going to be the difference maker in the second half to get a win. And Matt Rule laid it out very plainly and very simply. He just said, we've got to make one more play than Northwestern. So he knew this was going to be a close game. He knew it was going to be chippy. He knew all that sort of stuff kind of going in after you saw the first half. And Nebraska definitely made one more play than Northwestern. And we talked about that last drive Nebraska had before they had to stop Northwestern up 7 and finalize the game 20-21 with Emma Johnson's touchdown run at the very end. But nonetheless, I thought Nebraska in that fourth quarter drive did what they have done so well in some of those critical moments so far this season. Even when they were down to Michigan by 10, they found a way to go down and score and bring it within 1. There's something there to give yourself a chance to set up a win. They did it against Maryland on the road where they go down twice to be able to score and eventually get the game-winning touchdown. Didn't have any plays that worked their way against Minnesota. Definitely did it this time. And I think that there's something to be said about, we mentioned it too against Maryland when we sat on this stage and we had talked about, hey, guys that were stepping up all over the place to make plays. In that last drive, especially offensively, Dylan Raiola went to whoever he wanted on the field.
Hunter, Key, Barney, Emmett. Like, I think the only guy, ironically, who's made plays a lot this year in these types of drives, I think the only guy that didn't was Lindenmeyer.
Yep.
Like, that was...
Yeah, Lindenmeyer only one catch, and they didn't even get points off of the catch that he set up from a 3rd and 16 to 4th and 1. But yeah, I mean, every single guy, and especially Emmett there at the end, I mean, when your number was called, they made a play and they made the difference, and they extended what was a 21-21 game into a 7-point lead and burned 7 minutes off the clock. Northwestern didn't even have time to be able to mount more of a comeback.
Yeah, no, I thought the resolve was impressive for Nebraska because it was certainly a game that very easily could have gotten away. And I thought the resolve was impressive. I thought they did a really good job there. I also thought, the willingness to just stick it out with Emmett Johnson and stick with the run was impressive as well. Like I said, they're going to have to find a way to be able to get both Emmett Johnson and Dylan Raiola in a rhythm during the same game. That's a thing that's going to happen. But in a game, and it's probably going to have to happen next week, like I said, if we're being honest, against USC, but in a game that you understood how it was probably going to play out stylistically, understanding that getting Emmett in a rhythm was probably more important because of what you needed over the course of the game, and then allowing Dylan Raiola to look like the star quarterback on the last drive to make those plays. Like, that's what you needed. And I do think it's probably a little easier for a quarterback to get in a rhythm on short notice than it is for a running back. A lot of those guys, and it seems like Emmett's one of them, sort of need to build up a lather. But it seems like quarterbacks, like one throw seems like they can get them in a rhythm, right? Seems like you make one good throw and boom, they're off to the races. I thought that throw, I think I'm thinking of the right drive. I thought the throw was when Dylan stepped up in the pocket and found Hunter.
Because last week, I know exactly the one you're talking about. Corcoran got run by, and last week, Dylan was getting sandwiched between two guys on that play because he stood there and he took it.
But as soon as he saw him get beat, he stepped up, got himself a little room, and got the ball to Isaiah Hunter. And honestly, again, I thought Corcoran did a pretty good job today. For the position
called into action,
for the position he was put in, that was probably the one he got beat on the most. There was a couple run plays where he didn't do great, although I do think he's better at run blocking than he is at pass pro. But I thought for being the third guy into action today, I thought he did a pretty good job. You mentioned just the one sack for Nebraska today. That's a huge improvement from what we'd seen last week. And listen, I know people get mad when I say this. He got beat the right direction. Right? Yeah. If you're an offensive tackle, you have to get beat to the outside. Make him go the long way around the barn to try and get to your quarterback so your quarterback can do the thing we saw Dylan Raiola do. Step up, give himself some time, give himself an opportunity to make a throw.
Yep.
Corcoran got beat the right way. Like, you're going to get beat sometimes. You have to get beat the right way so you still give yourself a chance.
And on the sack that Dylan did give up in this contest, it was a quick one. It was under 3 seconds. He had, I think, a play action and tried to throw a fade route and try to get it out late or quickly. Or no, maybe that was a different play in the first half. That I don't know if he got sacked or maybe that was a sack or a different play, whatever. Yeah. I'm confusing two of them. But there was one where he was sacked, and it looked like Dylan knew where the pressure was coming from because he popped up and I think tapped his head or patted his chest, and he knew that he just didn't either slide protection the right way or didn't change the play or adjust whatever he needed to. He knew that he needed to get the ball out quickly and didn't have the time because of something else other than the offensive line's ability to, provide protection. That's kind of what I saw. I don't know that for sure. Obviously, go back and watch the film, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was, again, for being pressed into action, obviously Gatula was out. I don't remember. I'm not sure we saw what the injury was with Gatula, but he didn't start. He didn't play at all.
Right, yeah.
He was questionable coming in, and they said he couldn't go. I'm afraid. I don't even want to say this out loud.
Yeah, don't. I'm going to look it up to see if anything has been posted, but yeah, I know where you're going.
Teddy got hurt again. It looked bad. His reactions on the sideline, according to the radio broadcast, looked bad as well. The nature of the injury gives me an idea of what I think it was.
Right.
But so Corcoran being pressed into action there in the right tackle spot, I thought he did really well for what he was asked to do. I thought Pritchett did really well on the other side today, and I legitimately cannot believe how well Rocco Spindler did playing with a club on his hand. Like, I don't even know how that's possible.
I know.
Like, I genuinely don't. I don't know how you can block without, like, I don't get it. Like, maybe I'm a moron.
Well, and
I don't know how you can do that at all.
I almost texted you middle of the first quarter that said it kind of looks like Rocco's having a little bit of issue because you could tell that people were moving towards the club side and they were kind of swimming through it.
Yeah.
Whatever he did in the second half, he figured it out. Maybe he just hit him with the club first and then he worked his way on the opposite side. To your point on Teddy, Rule did say that the game ball was given to Teddy Prohaska, and this is from Rule, suffered a pretty bad injury today. So we don't know what it is. We don't know the extent, but we do know that is.
I mean, it looked like a knee to me, just the way that it happened and the way that he went down.
And also, I mean, not to, defend the offensive line like continually or anything like that, but if Teddy goes down on an injury where whatever happens or whatever happened to him, and that
was the only sack.
That was the only sack allowed. I mean, you can look at it and call it like a complete win for 60 minutes in the pass protection for Nebraska football.
I thought so. Like, that was the only sack of the day was when Teddy got injured. And it was, so the rest of the time, like I said, I thought Pritchett played well. I thought center guard, even with the club on Spindler's hands, did really, really well. And obviously you don't get the running performance you get from Emmett Johnson without the offensive line playing well. So I just had to to give credit there because obviously after last week, Donovan Raiola on the offensive line took a lot of heat, and, rightfully so. Like, as Coach Rule said multiple times, 9 sacks is unacceptable, regardless of who that's on in its entirety. 9 sacks is unacceptable. So I thought Dylan did a better job getting the ball out. I thought he did a better job of climbing the pocket. I thought they did a better job, honestly, of not – it seems like Emmett Johnson maybe is not the best at pass pro. And I thought they did a good job of not putting him in those positions, right? Yeah. Like, if he's clearly your best running back, and last week for sure he struggled in pass pro, I'll be honest, I haven't looked into it deep enough to know, like, hey, this is a thing he's constantly struggled with, but he certainly did last week. They're like, hey, maybe there's better ways we can use you on pass plays. Let's figure something else out. Well, maybe we leave Lindemeyer in. Maybe we leave Harburg in to help in that spot instead of Emmett Johnson, who's not a huge guy, like 5'11", 5'10", 200 pounds, like not a big guy. So I thought they did a better job of protecting him as well.
Well, what about? I mean, I saw the people get out of their seats for that Isaiah Mosee run. I mean,
listen,
people got out of their seats.
That 23-yard.
Oh yeah.
Listen, I've been
them staying out of their wheelchairs. That's for sure.
I've been a big fan of his all season. It was nice to see him get a few carries, break a big one. I think he's a super talented back. I certainly don't think he's, I think obviously Emmett Johnson's the clear number one, but I was really happy to see Isaiah
listen, this isn't like a Raiola Latif, people just being like aluminum tin hat like people, right? Like, this is, if Mosee can perform like that, and Emmett Johnson as a running back needs a spell to be able to get out of the game and, like, pick up a couple of breathers when he needs to.
Just a few plays.
If we can get some plays like that from your number 2 running back, hey, what was one of the biggest arguments in the offseason that everyone wanted?
Who's RB2?
Oh, well, what if RB2 might have proven himself on a big run today?
Yeah, that was, I mean
would be helpful if he can get a couple more of those. Now, again, I'm not saying take the ball out of Emmett Johnson's hands. I'm just saying running backs get tired. It does happen.
Yeah, famously. And 27 carries is a pretty big workload for a guy. And like I said, Emmett Johnson, that's not a huge dude. So I was really impressed with the offensive line in the run blocking. I know Emmett Johnson made a lot of those runs on his own, but there's some pretty big holes that they were creating as well. So I was pretty pleased with the play of the offensive line today. Now the $1 million question is, how do you get that level of consistency where it's not Maryland? They do really well against a really good pass rush. Mm-hmm. Then they do really poorly against a Minnesota team that wasn't really impressing anybody that much. And then they do much better against Northwestern again, who's probably closer to Minnesota level. So, like, consistency obviously needs to be shored up here a little bit still, but it was good to see them respond, and you have to give them credit for what it was done.
Yeah, right. This Hail Varsity Postgame, live from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in La Vista. If you're looking for more college football action, obviously they've got all the TVs and all the setup that you can go to check out all the games that are happening, not only today, but through the rest of your weekend for the NFL and everything else happening. If you miss any of our high-flying antics or actions coming from Hail Varsity Postgame, you can check it out on our live YouTube replays on the Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports channels, and you can also check it out on the podcast pages. Just search Hail Varsity Postgame wherever you get your podcasts. All right.
You want me to do a quick rundown of Big Ten scores real quick?
Why not? I mean, it's 11 a.m. We can see what we got there. I'm actually looking up a quick stat, so that would help me out if you could do that
absolutely.
for me.
So Rutgers walked off Purdue today. They got their first Big Ten win, moved to 4-4, 27-24. Indiana may have ended the magical UCLA Cinderella run, 56-6 on that one. I think everyone is stunned that Indiana beat UCLA like that.
But Signetti said they were 3-0.
Iowa currently 10-0, up 10-0 on Minnesota early on in that one. Still 3 minutes to go in the first there. And then one of the most interesting games of the day, I think, Washington and Illinois. Washington up early with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, 7-3. That's what's going on around the Big Ten nationally. We've got some of the biggest games underway right now. South Carolina with an early 3-0 lead on Bama. Missouri and Vanderbilt, where game day was camped out this morning, tied at 0. Iowa State and BYU, already 17 points just 10 minutes into this one. It's 10-7 Iowa State. Going through some of the finals from earlier today in the top 25, Syracuse fell big time to Georgia Tech, 41-16. Georgia Tech now 8-0 on the season, 5-0 in the ACC. That is looking like a very likely playoff team. Ole Miss scores 9 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to beat Oklahoma 34-26. Virginia knocks off North Carolina in overtime to keep their undefeated ACC season alive. They moved to 7-1, 17-16 was the score on that one. And then Memphis upsets South Florida 34-31. Memphis scored 17 in the fourth quarter, 17-0 in the fourth quarter to pull the upset on the Bulls.
All right. So the stat I was looking for is not, it was more of a thought. I was looking at Nebraska's total plays because a lot of the conversation we've had on this stage and talking through Hail Varsity post games of past is that the offense sometimes gets out of rhythm. It doesn't feel like it's succinct. Like sometimes it just feels like it gets a little out of whack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm looking back at Nebraska's total plays in a contest. And I'm going to write out the Akron and Houston Christian games because I don't want to go back to those. Let's stick with Power 4 opponents.
Mm-hmm.
So Cincinnati, Michigan, and the rest of the Big Ten. Since October started, Nebraska hasn't had a game except for one where they've had over 60 total plays in a contest. And that came last week against Minnesota. No, correction. Sorry. Maryland.
54.
They had... No, they have not. Yeah, so they haven't.
So today was the first one.
Yes, today was the first one. It was 61 today.
Yeah.
And they only had 2 more plays offensively. And Nebraska was averaging over 70 plays per game in their first 2 Power 4 games, which was Cincinnati, Michigan. Haven't gotten over 60 until today. So they're averaging just about 57, 58 in their past 4. I think that can mean something because that also means you usually don't win the time of possession that way.
Mm-hmm.
You usually can't control what's going on. And also, there have been a couple of these instances. Nebraska has routinely not had more plays than their opponents, even in wins.
Yeah, this one was close.
I think you can kind of tell that Nebraska sometimes when they get in funks and they're not able to do that. And granted, Nebraska would have had a lot more offensive plays if Kenneth Williams doesn't score a touchdown on kickoff. I completely understand that as well.
I mean, yeah.
But you're also looking at an early interception on a drive crucial in the fourth quarter. You're also looking at, different drives that get stalled out on fourth down or early on third down. I think that does mean something, and I'm not saying get super analytical on it and look at it, but if you're not being able to convert third downs or you're getting pushed back the sticks and you have to punt, especially early on when you go from 3rd and 22 to 4th and 5, whatever, you get this huge chunk play or whatever the case is, that does mean something. So I don't know if that's a priority for Nebraska, that they know they're just playing these closer games and they are limiting their own possessions, but that has been a strategy for opposing teams. In their loss against Minnesota, you kind of got the feeling, and you said it earlier, you got the feeling today for sure as well, that Northwestern said, hey, our best chance to win is having that offense on the sideline. And if Nebraska keeps themselves on the sideline, that's an entirely different issue as well, but it's part of the same problem. More offensive plays usually means more points for Nebraska, so they've got to find a way to be able to get back out there. They tried it today with all their 4th and 1s and everything. They were just getting goofy with it. I mean, can we talk about 4th and 1? We got to stop. Just line up. Like, seriously,
yeah.
I don't mean to be old ball coach right now and just stand on the chain link fence and shake it a little bit and say, run the damn ball. But I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, we're getting tricky with it. There's no reason to.
Getting a little too goofy with it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I need Heinrich Harburg under center unless you're just going to straight up tush push and do that.
Yeah, listen, the minute I saw Dylan go in a 3-point stance, I went, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't need that. I'm sure they're probably setting up a trick play later, but I don't know. Maybe just get the first down and quit giving me, high blood pressure. Like, nobody needs that. I felt like they were maybe doing a little bit too much on some of those, and then they set up that one where Dylan ends up fumbling the ball. Where I think if he holds on to it, I think he might have had the first down.
I think he was passed.
But again, I get that's a turnover. It's a 4th down, so it's not, I don't know, it doesn't feel as dramatic as some of the other ones. They had already decided not to kick the field goal.
Right.
So you can't really go back and say, like, well, if he doesn't fumble, no. Like, they had already made the decision. They weren't taking the field goal there. So,
do you question that a little bit more? I had that thought cross my mind.
I kind of wanted the points. I kind of wanted the points there.
And I know we have been pretty, stringent on this show about saying, okay, listen, the Michigan game, that first drive would have been great to get the points. You see that you lose by 3, but in the situation of that game,
I liked the aggressiveness.
You were still going to be it. There were parts of this game where I started to be like, I don't know, points seem like you got to get them when you get a chance to.
Yeah, stylistically in this game, I thought it made a lot more sense to maybe get the points there. I think the more, again, we talked about this earlier, I think the more separation you could put between yourself and Northwestern early, the more you kind of force Northwestern to get outside of their comfort zone. So I think points there would have been important. I do think that it was, I do think the play call there is maybe doing a little bit too much as well. Just like if you don't feel like you can just line up and run it or line up and sneak it for a yard on fourth down, like maybe you shouldn't be going for it on fourth down that much. Like maybe that's too simplistic. I don't know, but that's what Northwestern did every time. They just lined it up and basically QB sneaked it for 2-3 yards every time they had a short yardage. So, you want to put that on the offensive line. You want to do whatever. Again, I thought the offensive line played well today.
Yeah.
If you kind of just set it up, let them pin their ears down and go get after it, I think you've got a chance to do a little bit better there. But yeah, I don't need us to be doing all that. Dylan in a 3-point stance isn't fooling anybody. Like what do you think he's getting?
Right.
You think he's getting the handoff there?
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Now, Harburg in a 3-point stance, you never know what's going to happen.
That is true.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so, but I think we're doing a little bit too much on the fourth downs.
All right. Can I ask you not necessarily follow up, but can I ask you maybe just like gut reaction feeling right now? Because I had this thought during the game too.
Okay.
Isaiah Hunter, you trust him, wide receiver 1? You like him like that? Game on the line. I mean, he made a couple of plays today, and he was the go-to target. Now, I'm not saying that Dane Key's not necessarily the first receiver option in this offense, but it feels like Isaiah Hunter's kind of becoming the guy that when it's not cutting time, we go to Isaiah Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I feel like I trust Hunter, Key, and Barney equally.
Okay.
I think they do different things well, but I think in terms of, like, I didn't have a problem at any point during that touchdown drive to win the game. I mean, the ball went to all those guys at different points, and I felt good on all of them, right? So I feel good when Lindemeyer gets the ball in those situations. I feel good when Emmett gets the ball in those situations, run or pass. So I don't know that I mentally have put it down to the fact where it's like, that guy's for sure my receiver number 1 or my go-to guy in these situations. I think Nebraska's fortunate to be in a spot where that does make it difficult on the defense because there's multiple guys that are like, yeah, we'll throw to any of these guys.
Yeah.
And with equal confidence. And I honestly don't think I have like a leader in the clubhouse. I'll take any of those guys.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like,
all right.
No problem with it at all.
I also thought there were, as much as I, have been griping a little bit on the defensive line, there's a series there in the first half where Northwestern had to kick a field goal, and there was all the extra antics of the flag twirlers getting pushed in the fence and all that other stuff from McCullough and whatnot. Mm-hmm. RVP had maybe his 3 best plays of this season during that possession. He had a tackle for loss, he batted down a pass, and then he was also able to kind of penetrate in the backfield to stop what could have been another touchdown opportunity for Northwestern, instead force them into a field goal, which I mean, at the time it felt big, and obviously it proves to be big here too, because Northwestern would have a different type of mentality going into the fourth quarter, depending on what they were down and what they needed to score on that last drive. But regardless, there were certain moments when I thought certain defenders did step up, but I didn't feel like, and this has been one of the things I even asked you about a couple weeks ago during our bye week show, was who's the defensive player like star? Who's making the plays? Usually it's been McCullough. I thought today a couple of opportunities were RVP. I don't think that there's still that guy out there. Javen Wright had a big pick, but I'll be honest, I think he just hid behind the ref the entire time and then just appeared out of nowhere. Yeah, I don't think Preston Stone even looked at him.
He was being very, very sneaky.
Listen, I wanted the quarterback vision eyes from Preston Stone, and I want to see what his eyes were seeing, because I guarantee he thought he was throwing it right over a ref's head, and then Javen Wright just happened to be there.
Yeah, peekaboo, here I am.
It's the first time you've ever played peekaboo. There's no way you've done that.
There is, I don't know. I think you're right. Like, it's probably still Sierra Wright, but because people won't throw the ball at him, it's hard.
Well,
he doesn't make big splash plays.
He's not the number 1 corner.
Well, obviously,
Ravi.
Clearly.
How would you know?
We learned that 8 times on the broadcast today that it's obviously Andrew Marshall.
The Big Ten just sent all of their C team out there.
If we had gotten the C team, that would have been a dramatic improvement over what was
the refs, the officials. They were like
everybody, the whole thing, the crew, the whole thing.
It was almost like Tony Petiti was on the phone on like Thursday night, and they were like, "Oh crap, we forgot to get refs for the Northwestern game. Okay, just head down to your local Cracker Barrel. We'll see where we can find some of these guys. We'll see where we can." There's got to be like a group of 8 of them just hanging around, right?
I think they just went to a high school game last night and were like, "You guys will work. Let's go." Yeah, I don't. Maybe abrupt movement's a call that happens in high school.
Well, and also bad day for verbiage too, because even at the beginning, you knew it was going to be a bad day when they were talking about, all right, deferred penalty. It's a 1st down and 10 after the penalty. What?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
It's like
or when Northwestern challenged and they said Nebraska will be charged a timeout, and Matt Rule lost his mind on the sideline.
Which the sad thing is, I actually wouldn't put it past him to be that inept to get it wrong. So that's the hard part. Is like, oh yeah, they'll get it fixed. It's like, will they? Will they get it fixed? Because it feels like they're pretty bad at their jobs. And if you don't call them on it, they're just going to keep being bad at it and do stupid things.
Well, and I know the chat obviously wants to drop as many F-bombs, which rightfully so. You can in the chat, but we're trying to keep it very civil and PG on here. What if I give you some nice quoted lines from a Chance the Rapper song? I think this fits pretty well.
Sure.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I hope the Big Ten officials from today's Nebraska Northwestern game, this is where the Chance lyrics start.
Okay.
I hope they never get off Fridays. I hope they work at a Fridays that's always busy on Fridays. And I hope there's always snow in their driveway. I hope they win the lottery. I hope they lose their ticket. I hope the zipper on their jacket gets stuck. I hope their headphones are short, their charger doesn't work, and I hope they spill stuff on their shirt. There's a couple of others in there, but Sasha said I can't say those words.
Okay. Well, that's fine. No, I think that's fair. I think they I hope that they constantly have hangnails and that they every time they get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, they kick the corner of their bed.
That's a good one. Yeah.
You know,
I hope there's always Legos spilled in their house.
Yeah. I hope if they've got kids or dogs that they always step on their toys in the middle of the night.
I hope their kid hits them with the scooter. That one hurts.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. Yeah,
right,
that's a tough one. Trying to think like what else. I hope you always go to a 4, like you ask for a table of 4 and they only have 3 available.
I hope that they always get in their car driving home and they're like, oh, I'll get gas in the morning. And then they never wake up early enough to get gas in the morning.
I hope your tires always need air.
Yeah, just always perpetually low tires. You know, I hope you're always 300 miles over your last oil change, just constantly. That's what these Big Ten refs deserve. I hope that their luggage gets lost on the way. I hope they're safe.
Now you're getting a little bit
No,
more.
I hope they're safe on their way home. I hope their bags get lost for a couple days.
Yeah.
Not forever, just a couple days.
Right, yeah. Just go, and it ends up back.
Yeah, eventually.
Hopefully in time for you guys to miss a week. Learn from your mistakes.
They'll get it back eventually, but I hope it ends up in like Denver for a little while, just wherever.
Hope they get charged extra for a carry-on.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly.
Oh, I hope they have to gate check one of their carry-ons.
Oh, very good. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
They're just like, but my headphones.
That's really good. Oh, that's beautiful.
On a more serious note here.
No, I like that game. That was fun. Give me time to think of more. I hope your CD always skips. I mean, that's old.
That's old school. That's like me. I hope their drinks are always watered down.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Dang.
I hope the bartender always short pours you.
Yeah, this is the exact opposite of the people of Lincoln will buy your drinks for free for life. You're going to be charged double for the rest of your life.
You're going to be charged double, and you're going to get about half a single.
Oh, when was the last time you were here? Oh, like October 25th, 2025. Why do you ask? Oh.
So everybody's got the calendar. Half a shot. Rule said, I told you guys 6 wins. This is from Brian Christopherson at the press conference. He said, I told you guys 6 wins was awesome last year. We'll never talk about it again. Rule said this is one of his most favorite teams to coach. Points out the team was in a hurry to give the game ball to Teddy Prohaska, as you mentioned earlier, who suffered a pretty bad injury. So we can talk about 6 wins, though. They
did it.
Bowl eligible for consecutive years for the first time. Technically, Riley did it years 1, year 2, but they were 5 and 7 when they got in the first year.
They got academically eligible.
So,
the 6-1 minimum would have been 2013?
It would have been the last 2 years of Bo.
Yeah.
2013,
13?
13, 14.
13,
right?
14? Okay.
Yeah, because Riley was 15, 16, 17. So, yeah, I mean that's something. We're well plus a decade into being bowl eligible for in back-to-back years, so that's a plus. We can talk about it even if Coach Rule doesn't. 6 and 2, bowl eligible before November.
But listen, this is something too that you and Damon had talked about on the morning show back in June and July, and you referenced it a little bit when you talk about sometimes you have to beat teams and prove that you can beat them to surpass the place which you have been.
Yeah,
and Nebraska is trying to get past let's be clear, the lower middle tier of the Big Ten Conference.
Yeah.
They were never the bottom feeders regularly, but they were always unable to get to the middle pack or even the upper echelon. That's where they want to be. That's where they consider themselves. They're not the top contender right now. We knew that.
No.
We knew that they weren't going to be fighting with Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana right now. Like in this moment right now, in this microcosm of the season, we knew that they weren't going to be fighting for the top 3. But Nebraska does the things now in back-to-back years that we can say you're working your way to becoming that next tier of the Big Ten, where you are always routinely bowl eligible. You get to 6 wins by October. You win the games over teams that you are supposed to beat. And yes, it's frustrating they didn't get the win over Minnesota and do this last week, because then this would be 7-1, and we'd be talking about a completely different type of team.
Yeah.
But they're still doing the things they need to. November's wide open now. Your entire November is up for you how you want this season to go for Nebraska, because you've got a marquee game at night at 6:30 in your house against the Southern California team. And I hope it snows. I hope it's cold. I hope it gets so frostbitey out there. And we got all the, the grass is turning brown and USC flies in and they're getting chilly and cold. They can't trick or treat on Friday night. I hope it's the perfect environment to get November started right, because Nebraska may not have had the perfect October, but they sure as hell can start November the right way next week. And then anything can be possible within the realm of, relative imagination.
Right,
I'm just saying that they can actually get a lot of their goals still accomplished for this season. And it doesn't have to be a perfect November, but they have a November that they can set up for themselves because of what they did today on October 25th.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's an opportunity for them against starting with USC. Like, November looks a lot different than we thought it was going to because of the Penn State situation, right?
100%.
Like,
and the UCLA game.
The UCLA situation for sure. You do wonder if them coming back to earth against Indiana kind of shatters the glass slipper of it all, of the last 3 weeks, and them being like finding ways to win and things like that. I don't know. We'll have to see what the next week looks like for them as well. But it's a really interesting. It's a much different November than we anticipated, which is why, to his credit, this is why Damon hates talking about schedules. Like, even in like August, he's like, we have no idea what any of these teams are. We have no idea what any of these teams are going to be. We thought Penn State was going to be one of the best teams in the country, fighting for a spot not just in the college football playoff, but to win a national championship.
We still somewhat wrote it off as a loss for Nebraska 4 weeks ago.
Yeah,
like at September 27th.
Even after the UCLA win, you sit there and you're like, all right, that's super weird, but you still have Drew Aller, you still have your head coach, you still potentially can make a college football playoff. Still felt like a likely loss. Now you're sitting here and you go, okay, I have no idea what Penn State is. Their backup quarterback is very, very bad. Or at least he was last week.
Yeah.
That's all I know about him, is what I saw last week. So you sit there and go, that's a pretty strange situation.
So I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah.
Have you looked at the 2026 football schedule?
I have not.
Do you want to look at the 2026?
No, I don't. I don't at all, because
we play Ohio.
We don't have
Bowling Green.
We have no idea.
The Fighting Hawks.
I will fight you.
You will fight and hawk me.
I will fight and hawk you. Oh, never mind. So, like, there's
Maryland at home.
There is a dramatically different version of November than what we thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
USC is probably a little better than we thought. Iowa is.
I want to keep the big. I can't. I was going to ask you about the game next year at Piscataway.
Iowa is probably a little bit worse than I thought.
I think. It's still Iowa at the end of the year, because
I thought there was a potential that Gronowski could make them more dynamic offensively, and that hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by that. But they're still Iowa. They're still very the Iowa game is going to look a lot like either today against Northwestern or last week against Minnesota.
Yeah.
That seems.
Bless you. That was huge.
Very likely. Sorry about that.
But no, you're absolutely right, because like I just preambled a little bit, though, Nebraska's season doesn't necessarily hinge on USC. I mean, they've gotten to their bowl eligibility now. You don't want the ceiling to completely fall on this team right now. But again, what the expectations can be moving forward for Nebraska, what your national perception is, and ultimately what you want your program to look like is still attainable through the month of November. And I would argue this is maybe one of the more important Novembers that Nebraska has faced, because they don't have that monkey that they're chasing, right? It's no longer on their back. They've gotten it off, and they're not trying to chase it down anymore.
Yeah.
But they're trying to actually work towards a bigger goal that doesn't have an attainable, reachable, something you can hold in your hands, right? There wasn't anything like, we have to get to December. We have to play in a bowl game. You've done that now. You got it. This November is actually a lot more interesting for me, because now we don't know what their mentality is going to be. They've gotten to the minimum of what the program should be at, is bowl eligibility year after year. They've done it 2 years in a row. What can they do now moving forward with a November that has a slate that's pretty favorable for Nebraska if you look at it? I don't know what the Big Ten opening lines are going to be. I'm going to assume USC is going to be favored. I'm going to say it's probably USC like 2 or 3.5. That's probably close.
I think they're going to be favored. I haven't really thought about much what I thought the line was going to be. USC's coming off a bye, right?
Yep.
They don't play this week. So I was kind of thinking maybe a little higher, like 4.5.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking USC by 4.5. Yeah,
and you can let the betting models like determine which way you want it to look and everything. I don't want to make any bones about it. I think both those teams are much closer to each other than what a national perception would see. If you know about those two teams, I think you would say these teams are a lot closer to each other than they are, spread apart by either side of the country.
Yeah. Chris makes an interesting comment here on the chat. He says the biggest positive for me is Nebraska did not let Minnesota beat them twice. That's significant. That's growth. I agree. Mm-hmm. I think that's important too, because then, especially if, let's say, they end up losing the game today, then the USC game has a much different feel to it. But then you also have this, USC is pretty good and Nebraska's lost 2 in a row and they're kind of on the skids. And what now, right? You have this whole narrative that starts to build up. So getting this win was important. I agree with Chris that getting the, I think that's a big step and a big growth step for Nebraska. As far as USC is concerned, I do think nationally, and honestly, I do think USC is a weird team because I do think they have their flaws, and I think that you can beat them up physically still. Mm-hmm. I also was really surprised that they handled Michigan the way they did. Mm-hmm. That was really stunning to me because we saw Illinois beat them with that game plan, and Michigan, I thought, was more capable of executing that game plan than Illinois was. And they got beat pretty soundly. So I'm not totally sure what to make of USC. I know they're hyper talented at the skill positions. I know I want nothing to do with Mekhi Lemon. That dude's unbelievable.
Well, I mean,
you got to put Andrew Marshall on him. Best on best.
You gotta.
Good on good. Best on best. Clearly your number. Wait a second.
Let's just pray that Mark Helfrich is not anywhere near Memorial Stadium.
I'm sorry. I don't work for the Big Ten Network. I can't be that stupid.
Well, you're not going to be working for the Big Ten Network if you keep this up.
That's because I haven't. Never mind. I know people that work for the Big Ten Network. I'm not going to say that. Some of those people are good at their jobs. The ones that end up at Nebraska games are not.
Yep.
So no, but like I don't want anything to do with Mekhi Lemon. I'll be interested to see what their running back health situations look like because they've been pretty banged up there.
Lost one for the year.
Yeah, but the other two have been pretty good. Like they've still been able to run the ball super effectively.
They're a team that averages the most yards per game in the Big Ten and around the country. Jaden Mayava is one of the highest rated quarterbacks in the entire country.
He still is definitely going to throw about 3 balls a game that you can intercept. Like that's who he is.
But see, that's what I'm saying is that USC fans and some of the national perspective would also say the same thing about Dylan Raiola.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's totally true. And a lot of it may come down to which defense takes advantage of those throws, right? I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the defense does, whether they want to try and get more pressure on Maeva than they did on Preston Stone today. I was pretty frustrated at times that it seemed until the very end, they just refused to bring more than 4 guys.
A lot of solo blocks out there.
A lot of
solo blocks.
They weren't getting pressure with 4 guys. You got to do something else. Now it worked.
Yeah.
It ends up working, but
I don't know many I'm not a defensive coordinator. Notably.
I was unaware of that.
Oh, okay. I'm not a defensive coordinator. It's not on my resume in case you didn't look at it when you hired me. But
I didn't hire you.
You're not a part of the process? Okay, fair. Whatever. But it did kind of appear at different times today that maybe they just were like, hey, our defensive line just not going to get beat. And there were a couple of times where they brought some extra pressure. There was a key third down early in the first quarter that Deshaun McCullough came off the edge and kind of disrupted Stone's throwing process to hit a man one-on-one corner route.
When Harry had one of those very similar.
Yeah, there was a couple of those, but it didn't really feel like the goal was to get pressure. And I'm not ever saying that a defensive coordinator goes into a game saying, hey, we're trying not to get sacks this game. Like, don't get any of those. But maybe it was part of the process. It's like, hey, keep everything that you can in front of you. And we're just going to play back-end defense, and we're going to do it that way on defense and hope for the best and set ourselves up for success that way. That's usually not the case. That's usually not what you hear. You always hear, frontline pressure is the best. If you can bring 4 and get pressure with 4, that's always kind of the best recipe for success.
That's my philosophy, personally.
It really didn't feel like Nebraska did too much today that was going to hurt them by Preston Stone trying to beat them necessarily. So I don't know. I'm interested.
0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss.
I'm interested to hear if there's another Vanilla comment next week, because we heard it once, but Vanilla got you beat last week, but did Vanilla win this week? I mean,
maybe it left Northwestern in the game much longer than they should have been.
That's true.
That's also on the table, right?
That's a good point.
I'm of the mind that affecting the quarterback is the best thing you can do on defense.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I also think that I'm going to be honest. Like I'm I don't really like the man coverage stuff that they're running. And again, I'm not a defensive coordinator either. I think they leave their guys on islands a lot, but they also put a lot of guys in coverage, so it doesn't make sense that they're on islands as much as they are.
A lot of the catches today, especially the big ones that Northwestern seemed to make throughout the game, one-on-ones.
And so I sit there and I go, okay, I see, like last week against Minnesota, I see them just straight up picking on Donovan Jones, right? That's not to say he's not a good player or can be a good player. They were picking on Donovan Jones. They clearly saw something that they thought they could exploit. Today, it seemed like they were picking on Andrew Marshall. They didn't exploit it to a huge degree, but they were certainly going after Andrew Marshall. It seems like teams have gotten really good at finding where the one-on-one is and just giving themselves a shot there.
Well, we saw last week with Minnesota. I mean, that was something that I said right away, that Minnesota schemed themselves and said, hey, we're going to put that guy on an island and we're going to make him beat us.
And just running free. They were just running free.
They figured it out
on crossing routes and things like that. Like I know John Butler doesn't like to run zone very much. But if you're going to drop that many guys in coverage and man, I don't know how there can be that many guys that have one-on-ones consistently. That's really frustrating. There's probably a part of this that I don't understand as somebody who's not a defensive coordinator, and I'm sure we'll talk to DB about it on Monday. But that's a super frustrating part of this for me. So I go, okay, if I'm not getting pressure and I still end up with guys in one-on-ones, what am I doing? Right? That seems like I'm being either super passive or super vanilla or whatever it is. Doesn't seem like a good strategy to me. I would rather, and again, people get beat like this, and I understand that. I would rather, if we are going to have defensive backs in one-on-one positions anyway, I'd rather bring heat.
Yep.
Right? Like, at least you don't have as long to try and find it. At least you don't have as long to try and figure out, to try and wait for that guy to get open or do a double move or whatever, or run all the way across the field like we've seen several times. Like, at least you don't give them that much time to do that. That part is very frustrating to me. I'll also I think I would like to see more zone. It feels like we are chasing guys constantly on defense. It feels like the whoever's in coverage, whether it's defensive backs or linebackers, feels like they are constantly trailing guys. And we saw that a ton against Minnesota, but we've seen it all year where guys are putting people into motion. And I know DB's talked about this with me. You've got a couple options. You can either follow them or you can roll down and basically do a switch on who's guarding that guy or covering that guy. Sorry, I use basketball terms sometimes. You can roll down and basically do a switch on who's covering that receiver in motion, but it seems like we're just constantly chasing guys. A zone basically alleviates that, right? You're never chasing a guy. They're always in front of you. Maybe I would like to see a little bit more of that, because it's really frustrating.
And your eyes are always forward. I mean,
yes, your eyes are always forward. It would help against mobile quarterbacks, like Maeva. I think it's really, really frustrating just to sit here constantly watching guys chase.
Yep.
I hate watching guys chase on defense, and it doesn't seem like Nebraska's with those guys often enough for man to be worth it. I could be totally wrong, but if you're not getting pressure and you're chasing guys in one-on-ones all the time, that feels like a losing strategy long-term.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you. And again, not defensive coordinators. We're not putting our hats into the ring by any means.
Famously not. Yes.
You want to V up for Donovan Jones?
Listen, he had a good game today.
Yep.
Yeah, he had a good game today. I thought he responded really well to the game he had last week where he definitely struggled.
And also Northwestern there was a couple of weird opportunities that Northwestern, balls were going off of their hands. And, I said this, so I was sitting next to my mom at the game, and she was like, I don't understand why they can't go after the ball when it gets tipped up in the air. And I said, well, I told her one part is because they're in man. And so if the ball gets tipped away, they're usually not in position to pick that off because they're not circling the zone. But I also said, if on some of these tipped passes, Nebraska did get an interception, that probably means they were in the wrong spot. So it might not be a good thing.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, Donovan Jones made a play on either a tip ball or an overthrow where Nebraska did not make those plays in the first half. And the frustrating part about it is Nebraska did not score off of those points.
Sure.
They needed to. If you're going to get turnovers, it one prevents the offense from scoring, but two, you got to be able to convert those into something for yourself. But on that opposite side, man, I mean, when Nebraska kind of needed something to slow the energy down and be like, hey, we got to pull back, we got to make something work here, they figured it out and they got something done.
Yeah,
I'll give them credit with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I'm not going to do the V up because Miller North plays Omaha North.
Oh, do they really? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to V up, but
I actually. Hand to God, did not look at the A bracket yet. My bad.
Oh my God. Sorry, I was beating Minnesota 31-0 right now. There's 9 minutes left in the second quarter. Anyway,
That Friday game is just never gonna.
I don't know what.
I'm never gonna forget that Friday game.
I'm never gonna understand what happened
No.
then or what's happening now because I can't believe.
I mean, that's a trauma in my life. Depending on like if Minnesota cannot figure out, because I wanted to be like the benefactor at the end of it and just be like, well, we don't know how good Minnesota could be, but now I mean, just everyone could be cheeks. So that's the tough part. That's the tough. And like again, like Northwestern, they were trying to get to bowl eligibility too. They had won 5 in a row the first time since like 2017.
Yeah,
and they even had a Fitzgerald on their roster. So I was like, oh great, they've got everybody out there, every single thing that they could possibly have to beat Nebraska. Everything's trending their way. Nebraska got a win today. I'm happy about that. But if Northwestern just turns complete cheeks the rest of the season, then everything reevaluates at the end of the season, right? We don't look to 2026. We look to November 1st. That's where we look. That's where we look, Austin. That's where we look.
Illinois has closed it to 14-10 against Washington, just for keeping track there.
The game's in Washington, too. So,
that's super tough. Yeah. I am going to have to go back and figure out what the hell happened in this Iowa-Minnesota game because I don't know how it went from.
What was it 31-0?
Yeah, it's 31.
4 kick return touchdowns
with 9 minutes left in the second quarter. Like, when's the last time Iowa had 31 points with 9 minutes left in the second quarter? Like, we might be going back to the Brad Banks era for that one, but you probably don't even remember Brad Banks. But
no,
he was a very good quarterback. I believe he came in second in the Heisman in no, he was the Heisman finals in 2001.
This is the only Nebraska football postgame show that's going to reference him.
Brad Banks, terrific. I low-key really like Brad Banks. He was a good football player.
I'm going to actually figure out the scoring for you for just a minute.
If you could, that'd be terrific because I'm very confused how they got 31.
You want to tell me some of the big games that are happening either top 25 or tonight? I know there's a big one. You got the Dakota Bowl, North Dakota State, South Dakota State. That's where everyone's going to be looking at 7 o'clock tonight.
South Dakota State starting quarterback is likely out tonight.
Yeah, that changes things.
So that's a bummer.
All right, you ready for your scoring from Iowa, Minnesota?
Yeah, let's get it.
10 minutes, first drive for Iowa, 2-yard rushing touchdown from Mark Gronowski, a 34-yard field goal with 3:19 left.
That checks out.
A pick six, 34 yards out, 2:57 left.
Okay.
29-yard touchdown toss by Gronowski. That's like, his second of the season. And then a 50-yard punt return touchdown by Kane Wetjen.
That makes sense. So we've got a special teams and a defensive touchdown.
That's crazy.
That checks out.
That is crazy.
Iowa going to Iowa.
Minnesota currently has 21 total yards of offense, and they have the 1 turnover. Yeah, so that's not great.
Speaking of, we don't know how teams are going to turn out. Cincinnati up 14-0 toward the end of the first quarter against Baylor. Just for anybody that cares.
Just for anybody who's keeping track of that.
The big games coming up tonight. We've got Texas A&M and LSU. We've got what else do we have? Not a lot. I'm going to be honest.
A&M going to get eaten in Death Valley?
No, I think LSU sucks.
There. You want to talk about cheeks?
Houston and Arizona.
A lot of cheeks in Death
Houston
Valley.
and Arizona State. That's not a bad one. The best chunk of games is right now. You've got Texas and Mississippi State going. Texas is up 7-0. You've got that Washington and Illinois game we're talking about. Iowa State's up 17-7 on BYU. Vanderbilt trails 3-0 against Missouri, and Bama has taken a 7-3 lead on South Carolina. That's the rundown.
All right. Well, we don't have too much else. Hail Varsity positive postgame, 28-21 win. Let's just do some positive narratives. I think a lot of people are probably going to say the same things that we talked about. Luckily for Nebraska football, I think the best narrative that's going to come out of this is how bad the officiating was. And the narrative will not be about the team, which I think will be a healthy response from the past 2 weeks where it was, Matt Rule's going to Penn State 2 weeks ago. Last week was all about, how can Nebraska ever recover and how will they ever win a game again after losing and falling on their head against Minnesota. This week's probably going to be a different type of conversation. The questions asked by our media friends and those during availabilities and online are going to be a little bit different than what we saw last week. But positives, what's kind of their number one takeaway from this performance?
Special teams again, obviously the Kenneth Williams touchdown. You've got the
I know Archie had a touchback. Come on.
I know, what are we doing? But you have the missed field goal, which is obviously a tough spot there. But I mean, that special teams touchdown probably changed the course of the game for Nebraska in a positive way. So special teams, once again, a huge win. Once again, pay Mike Eckler whatever he wants. Just whatever the number is, just write him a check.
And you know what's crazy too is through 7 games now, you can continue to say whenever the special teams unit as a whole isn't perfect. They missed a field goal today. They had a punt go into the end zone, all that sort of stuff. They still get these dynamic game-changing plays.
Yeah,
they still find a way to do it.
Yeah, and I don't expect special teams to be perfect because I don't expect any unit on the football team to be perfect. But the fact that they're still able to make winning plays even when they have mistakes is a huge upgrade, and that was a huge part for Nebraska today. Obviously, Emmett Johnson was really good today, had a huge game. And then I thought Dylan Raiola on the game-winning drive was really good. That's what you want out of him. That's what you want out of your starting quarterback, who you didn't ask to do a ton today, but when you needed him to make the throws, he made the throws.
Blood in his eyes.
And that's what you needed. So, and again, I think the resolve of dealing with a lot of things feeling like they were going against you. That I think is another positive. So, what about you?
I would just say kind of the same thing, too. If there's a way that we could set the clock to Dylan Raiola's in a tie game or down 3 with 2 minutes to go, and just if we can put him into some type of hypnotic trance, it seems that that's his best version of himself. So let's try to get him in that attitude for 4 quarters of play. I think that would be really good.
Yeah.
Response of the team, physicality, and fight. I think those are the 3 that you can definitely say. I thought offensive line, even though they definitely were not perfect today, a huge upgrade. I mean, you want to talk about a kid
especially
almost flunking out of school last week to where they were this week. I mean, we're talking about like at minimum like a B+ grade today because they performed well and they stepped up when adversity was going to strike them. Same way that they kind of went down last week. Spindler goes out of the game. Pritchett obviously gets kicked out of the game. And they responded this week, even with Prohaska out, even with Gatula being out of the game before it started. Corcoran stepped up, and he made the opportunities available for Dylan Raiola to step up and be able to make amends. This was a good game for the offensive line. I agree. But I really thought, and I started off with this way, and I think I want to finish it this way. Nebraska's ability to take the fight to Northwestern at times, while it got chippy and you don't want it to cause penalties and cause issue, that's what they needed last week. That's exactly what they should have done against Minnesota. Is when they got punched in the mouth, they should have punched back. Instead, they backed into the corner and took punches and tried to see if they could wiggle their way out of it, if there was an easier way out. Sometimes you just got to go through somebody's face. And I think that they went right at Northwestern when Northwestern came at them today.
You want them to Marshawn Lynch just run right through their face?
Yeah, well, listen, there's an MFer in there somewhere, but this is a kid's show. Yeah,
shoot.
yeah. So
run right through their face.
Run right through their face. That's what we do. All right. Well, I mean, we're like almost an hour and a half into this thing. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. We appreciate it. Again, if you want to watch the rest of the slate of college football for today, if you are looking for NFL action, Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in both La Vista and Gretna are your places to do it. So make sure you're checking those out. We'll have another Hail Varsity postgame next week, late night. Yep. Late night. You looking forward to that?
Yeah, I think we're going to be down in Lincoln.
Now, I will say this. We did have a good friend as well, the Black Shirts in our chat. He donated $5 to the energy drink fund for you and I.
Going to need it next week.
Yeah, we will.
Definitely going to need it next week.
Someone tells me it's not a bring your own juice kind of day next week. Though.
No, if they don't have the juice next week, then there's something wrong.
They'll never have it.
Then they don't have a pulse. But no, I think we're going to be down. I think we're going to do a little pregame show with our friends from Omaha Steaks and Team Jack Foundation before the game down at their tailgate. We'll be down there for the game, obviously, and then I believe we're going to be down there for postgame as well. We'll keep you updated on where that will be in case you want to stop by. But if you do want to stop by also, we will be here for the morning show Friday morning. It's the only live show we will do all year during football season. Damon and I will be here. I assume Austin and Rico will be here too, just hanging out. Maybe.
Yeah, you said I get the day off, which is so sick.
Listen, that's a Sasha question. I don't have that authority.
Okay.
I don't have the authority to give days off
here.
No, we'll be here 7 a.m. Doors open at 6:30. RSVP at hurrdatsportsbar.com. It'll be a $15 all-you-can-eat breakfast buffet. You can
and hey, listen up. It's free, right? To get in, you just have to pay for the breakfast buffet.
To get in, you can come in and hang out for absolutely free. If you want the breakfast buffet, it's $15.
But again,
you can buy drinks and stuff as well.
RSVP. Don't just show up at 6:30 because if you
we gotta make sure there's enough food.
Yeah, and then also if you don't RSVP and you show up and it's already filled up, that's on you. You have no one to blame but yourself. You're I'm just going to show up and just be the cool guy who's it doesn't matter. Come on, RSVP, be here. It's going to be a good time. And also, I mean, DB with a crowd, that man's like a comedian. You're done for Friday morning.
Yeah, he's gonna work the crowd a little bit. You got to watch out here. So it'll be fun. Make sure you come hang out. Come in a Halloween costume if you want. It's Halloween.
Yeah.
It'll be cool. I'm trying to get DB into a onesie. We'll see what happens.
Anything's possible.
Anything is possible.
I mean, you could just get him into one of his 5XL shirts and that probably does about the same.
Yes, that's about the same. That he steals from his offensive line coach. That's a real thing. That's where he gets those.
Yeah. All right.
Fine.
That was Hail Varsity Postgame. Nebraska wins it 28-21. Go hug your loved ones. Tell someone go Big Red. Have yourself a great night. And make sure you're tuned in for Hurrdat Sports Live, bright and early, 7 a.m. on Monday morning. We'll see you again for another edition of Hail Varsity Postgame next week, late night after USC.